What's good in the hood, YouTube? This is Crazy Samurai 71 here bringing you another video. Today I'm bringing a video on Power Rangers Hyperforce episode 3. Now this episode was actually really good. It did a whole bunch of really great things. I'm not even sure whether or not I'd actually put this one higher or lower than the second episode, because I actually really liked the second episode, but this one was really good. There was a lot of really great moments in it. I actually liked it a lot. And many people may be wondering, did we get Zords this episode? For those that didn't actually see the episode but are curious, no. Unfortunately, we did not, but we got something pretty exciting in the end, which I was actually pretty happy about regardless. I'm sure we'll be getting Zords in the next episode or so. More likely than not, it will probably be in the next episode. Latest, I would imagine, would be episode 5. But as far as things go, I'll get into what that is as far as what we got. And more in this episode review. So for starters, what ended up happening was, as we might remember from the last episode, Jack was seen as potentially being believed to... It was believed that he might die. And unfortunately for us, he did survive. He actually was able to be stabilized, and eventually he was able to heal himself back up. Now, additionally, what ended up happening is that they ended up having to fight the Alliance leader, who is like a 7-foot giant creature who has like bloody bandages and all sorts of gross stuff on him. But we don't ever see we still haven't seen his face yet. All we know is that we've had this moment into this episode where they end up fighting using the ship and everything. They even use the combination of their V weapons to make the vortex blaster and attack the Alliance leader. And eventually, at one point, when they're doing all this, the Alliance leader says, "Leave us be, or you'll die." And then he lets them go because he has bigger things going on. At least that's what we have to assume. So then after that, what ends up happening is that we also find out that the ship has been damaged really badly. They can't really travel very far, and also they can't travel to other time periods. They're stuck in the year 1994 in Angel Grove. So the question is, what are they going to do? How are they going to disguise themselves? Where are they going to go? And what ends up happening is that they end up going on the ship, discovering more things about it, trying to repair things. We have some great moments with shippings going on. You may be wondering, what are shippings? Basically, shipping is when two characters come across as being in love or having the potential to have some sort of relationship. Doesn't necessarily require them to be in love. It could just be that there's a hinting at maybe them having some closeness to them. So for example, in this episode, there were actually 2 different situations that happened where shippings occurred. So for starters, we had the incident with Vesper and Eddie where they were working together on different technology, and like Vesper basically explained the fact that, you know, when I became the Black Ranger, I wanted to, you know, be the best Black Ranger I could. And I think now with all that we're doing and, you know, becoming comfortable with all you guys, I think I want to also become a better Vesper. And like, it was really her showing herself and, you know, what her confidence level is, and showing that she isn't so confident, that she's still trying to get stronger as a person. She's still trying to you know, feel comfortable in her own skin, and I really appreciate that side of her. You know, that's a really great thing to show off, and they just got along pretty well. Additionally, we had moments with what do you call it? Marv and Chloe going into the training simulator, which is called the Pocket Dimension, where they end up fighting this giant monster while like Chloe decides to be creative and says, "Oh, I think we should maybe make it so that there's like rainbows and bunnies and stuff in the background." And so like they end up fighting in the simulator with this 2-story monster, and like they're using the different weapons. And at one point, they end up combining their moves, because like Marv has fire-based moves and Chloe has wind-based moves, so they create like fire tornadoes and fire spins and stuff like that. And they do all these like kind of pretty violent sounding moves, like poking the monster in the eye and like slashing through and doing this like slash action that leads to a high five or something like that. I don't know, some really crazy stuff was going on there, but it was really cool. There were moments later on where like Chloe ended up giving Jack a burrito that had like pancakes and sprinkles and some weird stuff in the back of the fridge. I don't even know. It was weird, but it was kind of fun. I don't know. I don't even know how to describe it, but I love the concept. Additionally, we had moments where like the cooking machine they have, which is like the Instant Kitchen 3000, wasn't working, and like Marv was screaming at Eddie like, "Oh, the machine isn't working again. Oh no, there's sprinkles everywhere. You need to come over here." You know, like he was just screaming at him because he just didn't understand how the machine worked. And there was just a lot of really funny banter going on. Eventually, they also had this time anomaly where Scorpina, which is the villain from the original show, apparently was written out of history. And so the question was, is that how could this be? And it was believed at first that maybe she's connected to the Alliance. So that was something that was first believed to be the case, and they realized, what can we do? And they also mentioned how, you know, she was originally working for Rhea Repulsa, which means, yay, we actually get to hear that finally, the mention of Rhea Repulsa. Although we didn't know of the putties from last episode. So, additionally, what ends up happening is that we have incidents where they have to like change their clothing and disguise themselves because they end up deciding to go to the library after realizing that the only places that she'll be probably are either the library, the beach, or the park. And they also have this great moment where they mention the fact that, you know, Scorpina is very crafty. She may disguise herself as a human to try to fit in, come across as being something that you like, making it not so obvious who she is. She has to be on your toes so that you don't get you don't make the mistake with her. And she's also a seductive character, and that's basically a nod to the episode of MMPR where Adam was supposed to go to a dance and was going to go with Aisha, but then he ends up finding this girl named Sabrina, and he was going to go with her, and she's into martial arts or whatever, and she kind of makes Aisha annoyed, and then eventually turns out to be Scorpina. So basically, they're actually like borrowing that exact same concept from the show, but doing it in a unique way where they actually have it where Eddie and Marv go over to Scorpina, or in this case Sabrina, trying to like get to know her and also find out whether or not she's part of the Alliance or not, because that's the thought that people were, that was the idea, is that she may have been written out of history because maybe she became a member of the Alliance. Maybe they're not part of the official history or whatever. And the other concern was that maybe they were screwing up the time stream or whatever because of the fact that she was written out of history. So that was another point to consider. Additionally, I forgot to also make this note that the thing that they got that was unique this episode was their individual weapons. So each of them got individual weapons. For example, Chloe got like a bow and scythe weapon that has a gun mode, and Vesper had a triple axe weapon that also has a shield mode that she could throw or she could protect herself with. It's like a disc. And what do you call it? Marv had a gun that could shoot fire or turn to a claw mode, and Jack had a hammer that could turn into a bazooka, but the hammer was big, and it was called the Creus hammer. And then we had Eddie, who had a trident weapon that was called like the Oceanus Trident, and it could turn into a double sworded weapon or double blade weapon, and so he used those. But additionally, when they were talking to Scorpina or Sabrina, trying to convince her to like give up information, like it was turned out that she wasn't necessarily on the side of the Alliance or whatever, but she apparently has her own motives in mind, so that's interesting. And there's a point where they try to get everyone out of the library, and they talk to the girl from the previous episode where they went trick-or-treating or whatever, and tried to convince her to get everyone out of the building, and she leads them to the exit, and they give her candy to incentivize her, and so that happens. Additionally, they end up fighting. They end up hearing of a monster called Volcanos, who is this being that is told by Scorpina to go to Rita's base, or I guess the palace probably, and steal some of the clay from Finster's lab and bring it back to Scorpina and then go back to the ship or whatever. And that's it's basically giving a clear, because the way that they described it made it out like he had retired from what he was doing before Zed had come into the play, and like she even mentions Zed, Scorpina. So it was kind of hinting at the fact that this was probably in between like when Finster had left and when the marriage had happened. So meaning it must have happened somewhere in between, like before the marriage, but after Zed's introduction, basically. So yeah. Additionally, what we also found out, what I didn't mention, was that apparently the Rangers are off planet. So that could mean a lot of things. One thought that was mentioned in the show was that the alien Rangers might be the reason for that. The other thing that I forgot to also bring up was the fact that the shot that was done to Jack might have been was considered to be like electric magic energy of some sort, and they believe that was turning the people into Alliance members. And the reason why Jack didn't turn into an Alliance member was because he had Ranger powers that was nullifying the attacks. And what they thought was maybe since there were Rangers of the future that had magical abilities, maybe they could learn something from them. So that kind of hints at like Mystic Force, which means they might go there and gain spells that they could use to turn all the people that were turned into Alliance members back into regular Time Force members, or people who were working for the Academy and working as officers or whatever. So that's something to note, and that means that they might go to the Mystic Force era, which is really cool. Additionally, they end up fighting a book monster, which is a whole bunch of books, and another bunch of small monsters that are like a whole bunch of library, like books and junk and all sorts of other stuff that's found there. So there's a whole bunch of different scenes. There's great humor with like the burritos. I mean, it's very jam-packed. This episode had a lot of different things going on, some really clever references, some original concepts, some, just all sorts of interesting stuff happened. Additionally, there were moments where like Eddie fell for Sabrina, and that was the reference to the episode. But then eventually he was convinced otherwise, and he acted like a jerk originally to Marv, but it turned out that really Marv had been, Marv understood it, and he eventually explained to Eddie that when he was working, that his backstory has to do with the fact that he originally was a Time Force officer, but then he revealed to Jack a secret that he had, because Jack was his partner, and Jack gave up that secret, and the dean for the Academy heard about it, and then he was revoked of his position, but then he managed to get back later on, and that's why he was put back into the school. So that's another thing to note. They don't explain what the secret is, but that's something to wonder, what would the secret be. Additionally, they also mention towards the end that maybe they'll try to connect with Rita and form an alliance with her, because she's the enemy of their enemy. So maybe they do that, but at the same time, Alpha 55 and Jack even say it's probably not the smartest idea to do that, because she's beyond dangerous, and that would be super risky. So that's probably not going to happen, but it is something to note. Again, there's a lot of stuff that happened. There's great humor. There's all these burrito moments. I keep mentioning the burrito moments. There was also book moments that were really clever puns with the Dewey Decimal System had a joke that they did instead of that, and the reading rainbow was mentioned. I mean, I don't know. There was just a whole bunch of really clever moments. The what do you call it? The shipping was a big deal for a fact this time. Next episode, I'm sure we'll either get the Zords or something new. I'm surprised we haven't gotten them yet, but I'm sure that if anything, we'll get them next episode, and I'll be curious to see when they reveal what they look like and what the Megazord looks like again. They also kind of hinted in the fireside chat how the Megazord might work, and what they said was that the way that they combine is kind of similar to the way that the Ninja Steel Megazord combines in a way. So I don't really know if they're referring to that in the senses of replacing pieces to create a different look, like when it comes to the alternative modes, like the Rumble Tusk Megazord versus the Ninja Steel Megazord versus the Astro Ninja Steel Megazord or whatever. You know, I don't know if it's like that or it's just how they like piece together, and like maybe there's you know, one of the Zords sits inside of it. Like, it might be the fact that it sits inside kind of thing. I don't know for a fact. I'm curious as to what as to what it will look like in the end, because when we see that, that will obviously give us a better hint as to how it's going to look. I'm also curious as to how this is work, especially since if they're going to do this, it's going to be original content with probably some interesting CGI happening there. So that's going to be really interesting and cool to see as well. So I'd love to know your opinions. Are you guys looking forward to episode 4? Did you guys enjoy this episode? What are your thoughts on this? I'll have some questions below. Please remember to like, comment, subscribe, tell me what you guys think.